Dominion settles, Fox is firing people, Desantis falters. Oh, the breakdown starts now. What a week. Good evening and welcome to The Breakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is the Rick Wilson, and we are happy to be back with everyone today because there's a bunch of stuff that's happened since the last time we were all together. So much, Wilson. I mean, first of all, I've been back and forth to Charlottesville hanging out with Liz Cheney, up to Harvard to revisit the IOP, back down to DC to teach an intern class, all in like 3 days. That was just the 3 days this
Good Lord.
week. I know. I was in Dallas
for
last
other people,
week.
I would say, oh my God, that's terrible. But for us, it's like, all right.
This is our lives. This is our lives. This is why we come to you every other week right now, because we've got a lot of travel, because we are out here doing Lincoln Project business, fighting for our democracy. Because if you've been paying attention to the headlines, there's a lot of crazy things happening, and we need to keep this fight up. So first of all, good news. We'll start with the good news. Biden is announcing he's running for re-election next week. I think that that's good news. It's about time. No more of the speculation over this nonsense. So Democrats can get over themselves now and focus on supporting their guy. So that's happening next week. We just heard about that earlier today. And we're going to talk this Dominion Fox case, the decision to settle this week. I had mixed feelings about it. We'll talk about that. Desantis was up here in DC and it didn't go well for him. It just didn't go well. We're going to talk about that. And McCarthy was in New York trying to convince Wall Street that Republicans aren't going to tank the economy with this debt ceiling thing. And he made an ass of himself.
Spoiler alert, they are.
Right. And we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to remind everyone, and thank everyone who has voted already, but I want to remind folks that the Webby Awards, right? LP has been nominated for 2 Webby Awards. That's a big deal in this industry. And the voting ends today. So if you have not had a chance to vote, please go to the Lincoln Project website. It is lincolnproject.us. And there is a Webby/Webby link there. And please, please, please vote. We have 2 amazing ads. One is voiced over by the great Peter Coyote. He's amazing. And we have our campaign on Ukraine. It's really good.
He really brought a level to it that only he can do. It's just he's one of those most iconic voices in American media and film, and he's just got he really understood the emotional weight behind that ad. He just captures that every time. It's really, I think, such a blessing and a privilege, that he's willing to do this for us, for the Lincoln Project, and lend his talent and voice to our efforts. So we're grateful to Peter Coyote for that. And hopefully we'll win some more awards. So please go and vote. Yes, thanks to you guys. So there's that. And of course, Rick, even though we don't have our Tuesday show for now, but we cannot forget one of the most popular parts of the breakdown, which is Last Week in the Republican Party. Yes, it is.
Let's roll it.
I'm like a dog on a bone, and I will not stop until we get justice in Arizona.
Cat turd for press secretary.
I love you too.
There was nothing more satisfying than seeing fridges full of untouched Bud Light.
They want to take away my jewel over my dead body.
A lot of diversity within the NRA.
Yeah. You described their Twitter feed as diarrhea.
I said it's the Twitter equivalent of diarrhea.
Okay, it's not literally diarrhea, but
no.
And I would have jailed a bunch of journalists.
I call it the N-word. You have 2 N-words. You don't mention either one of them. The nuclear word you don't mention.
The N-word. Can't use the N-word. 2 N-words you can't use. You can't use the nuclear word.
I'll put anything in my mouth, Chef. I have no limits.
The God and creator of heaven and earth has anointed Donald Trump to be president.
Whitmer rhymes with Hitler.
God has chosen Donald J. Trump for such a time as this to lead our nation out of the evil that we are going.
So all I got to say to him is karma's a chain.
If you want the drag queens to stop reading disgusting books to your kids, then you're an enemy of the government, and it's wrong.
I'm happy and honored to endorse Donald J. Trump.
These are idiots we're dealing with.
The thing you folks don't understand is we make this, and our fantastic rapid response team makes this every week, and they always have 100 times more material than we could ever put on the air.
I know.
We could do that. We could do an hour of that every week because the crazy level rises and rises and rises consistently.
And God bless our team that sits there and goes through that and combs through all of that crazy, because that melts your brain.
They have to wear those Hannibal Lecter masks after they do this for a while, but it's okay. They're very talented, and they do that. They really do capture the ragged edge of this craziness.
I'm telling you. And the thing about it is, it's like it feels almost as though we're reliving the same things over and over, right? Because they're saying the same kind of stuff, but it's almost normal for them now. Like, we used to be shocked by some of this stuff. Now it's just like, this is who these people are. This is who they are. Huh. And I don't understand Trump's obsession with this N-word thing. He gets fixated on these weird things sometimes. And now it's this, there's 2 N-words that you can't say. What is that about? That it was, the other one is nuclear. Yeah, well, we all know what the first one is, but
it's a mystery, Donald. I bet you've never heard it before.
Right. It almost feels like he wants to say it. Like he wants to test.
Of course he does. Of course he does.
He can say N-word, not nuclear, on live television and see if that'll do. I mean, I don't know. It's weird to me. It's weird. The other thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Did you see what happened to her this week in the oversight committee?
Dan Goldman.
I love this guy. He's
smacked her so hard. Look, he beat her like a rented mule in that committee because she was just doing what Republicans have gotten very accustomed to doing, which is making shit up and getting away with it.
Yeah.
And his response was essentially, "No, I don't think so, crazy lady."
Yeah, and then she went after the Homeland Security Secretary and called him a liar. And regardless of how you see these jackasses act in Congress, there are still decorum rules, and there are still certain you can't impugn another member's integrity in official proceedings. Right. And so I think it was Benny Thompson that raised a point of inquiry and said, I want those words stricken from the record, taken down.
Those words taken down.
Taken down.
Congress is a very
right. Taken down means that she is no longer recognized for the rest of the hearing. And it was a Republican chairman of that hearing who had to acknowledge it because it was the proper point of order. So she couldn't act like an ass.
She said it was the point of personal inquiry.
Yeah,
and
he's like,
no such thing.
Yeah, he's like, that's not a thing.
It
was great. It was great. So,
hey, by the way, I just want to touch on the House since we're talking about it.
Yeah.
This idea of decorum seems to suddenly be appearing for Republicans in various places like Tennessee. But in Tennessee today, and we didn't really have time to cover the story for the show tonight, folks, but all those guys that were running the whole program against the 3 folks that they ejected from the 2 that they ejected from the House, they have somehow been heading down the highway in the town of fucking around. And the exit ramp to Finding Out was taken today as one of Sexton's biggest allies in the House was forced to leave because he was putting up his teenage intern in an apartment near the Capitol.
Are you kidding me? I had this one.
It just broke as we were coming on the air, and it's just like, come on, people.
Well, they're piling on now because they've opened up a can of worms. They couldn't leave well enough alone. They had, the devil always hangs himself, right? It always goes too far. And in this case, they couldn't leave well enough alone. They had to throw those guys out and pull that shit. And the 2 Justins get put back in. And what happened now? People started looking into Sexton, who is the head of the state legislature there in Tennessee, who's leading all of these efforts. And there was another story about how he doesn't even live in his district.
Correct. Judd Leggett pulled that one up. And these guys are all, it reminds me, Tara, of 1996 when Republicans decided they were going to make everything about, or 98, about Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, yeah.
And it turned out all of a sudden like a chainsaw went through the Republican leadership.
Yeah.
Oh,
First Newt Gingrich.
Livingston has girlfriends.
And Livingston. Yep. That's how they ended up with
the place to the ground.
Yes,
Good luck, boys.
I know. This always happens because it's projection, and eventually it will catch up with you. I just hope that it starts catching up with more of them more often, and they're exposed for the lying bastards that they are. Because
well, I want to say one more item of projection, folks. And if you're not following the story of Ali Alexander, former right-wing darling,
who was in our Last Week in the Republican Party video there,
who you saw briefly in that. He's one of those guys that was very quick to scream about pedophiles online. And this week it turns out that he's one of them. He's texting 14-year-old men and asking them to come out to Texas to hang out with him and be his interns.
Who broke that story? That was a big expose.
On the right about that. They're super active on hunting down all the pedophiles and groomers, and yet they're really quiet about it. It's very strange.
Yeah.
What could have happened?
Who broke that story?
Huffington Post, I believe, broke that story.
It was a HuffPost story. Rest in peace to BuzzFeed News, by the way. Today, BuzzFeed News shut down.
Out.
That's a shame, and some of it's being absorbed by HuffPost, which is why I mentioned that. And but yeah, Ali Alexander is a bad dude, and he was one of the leaders of Stop the Steal. He's done all kinds. He has a rap sheet a mile long. You know it's bad when Nick Fuentes even denounces you, and that's his buddy. And so
when Milo Yiannopoulos is like, no, this guy's too much.
Yeah, I mean, he runs around, he talks all this shit about how he wants to jail journalists or kill or jail journalists. Ali Alexander, but he was a chicken shit on the run for like a year and a half after January 6th. So please, that guy is the worst of the worst, and you reap what you sow, buddy. So we'll see what happens to him. I also want to remind folks that if you have some good questions for us, because I know you don't get to see us as often, send them in and we'll get to a couple questions before the show ends tonight. So I wanted to put that out there for folks who want to ask us some stuff. You can ask us anything you want, either what we're talking about or something else. If we haven't covered it, happy to do it. So I want to talk Fox News and Dominion. We were already all waiting. We had the number. We were going to call in and listen to the proceedings. The jury was impaneled. The media had swarmed to the courthouse in Delaware. It was like OJ frenzy again. And womp, they settled at the very last minute for $787 million. And you know,
787,
right?
787.5.
Yeah, like a Dreamliner, right? 787 Dreamliner plane,
right?
Isn't that
right?
Yes, you're a pilot.
Not that kind of pilot, but yes.
No, right.
I like him.
I was like, come on. I really wanted to see those fuckers go on to the stand, or we would never see it because it wouldn't be videotaped, but at least get the transcripts of it and have it reported. But I guess it's a defamation suit. It wasn't Dominion's job to make sure that, democracy and the free press and press accountability, that wasn't their goal here. It was to right the wrongs for their reputation and get the monetary value for it. But still the largest settlement. Blah, blah, blah. Right. Yeah, okay. But it's still the largest settlement of a defamation case in history by many times over. And there's still other cases out there. There's Smartmatic, there's their case against Newsmax and OANN. They're, not as big as Foxfish, but it's still somewhat satisfying for them to have to acknowledge that they
and folks, I understand,
lied.
We understand certainly that it was disappointing that we didn't get to see Rupert, dragged up onto the stand to testify and mutter through his bubbly lips about, I'm not really in charge of folks, I'm just in charge of it. And to have Sean Hannity and Tucker and the rest of them up there, that would have been a satisfying thing. I still think we can't look away from the fact that Fox has not been punished yet in a way that matters to Fox.
Nope.
They may be firing a few people today, getting rid of Bongo and some others, and Judge Box of Wine, but they have not learned a lesson yet. They're not going to stop lying to the American people. That is their stock and trade. Their audience depends on the lie, and they depend on continuing to give their audience the crack that they want. They're trapped by their audience.
Yep. And that's the frustrating part of this. It's not enough. I mean, almost paying $1 billion, that's not going to shut down Fox News. And so I believe it was 20% of their revenue from last year.
Right.
Revenue. Right. I mean, it's insane.
This is a speeding ticket, frankly.
Right. For exactly. It's remember in The Social Network with the story about Facebook, and his lawyer says, just settle. It's better than getting dragged through all this. How much is it for? She's like, that's a speeding ticket for you to make it all go away. That's a similar situation here. But we have stayed on this. We warned people, and we will continue to call Fox News out. And months ago, we put out this ad talking about how Fox News is lying to you. Here's a reminder.
Rupert Murdoch thinks Fox viewers are stupid.
He's the most dangerous man to ever cross our border, ruling over a network of deceit that made him a billionaire.
I'm the guy. I'm the guy. I'm the guy.
Fox News is an anti-American cancer.
Fox Chairman Rupert Murdoch testified under oath that he does not believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump. And he also said that some Fox News hosts went too far.
Host Tucker Carlson texted a producer, "We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights." Referring to Trump, Carlson says, "I hate him passionately. I can't handle much more of this."
There is a settlement in the high-stakes trial between Dominion Voting Systems and Fox.
Fox has admitted to telling lies about Dominion.
This case really was ultimately about Donald Trump and about the fact that he was in bed with a network that Americans relied upon for news, and that what they were told instead of news was lies.
Today's settlement of $787,500,000 represents vindication and accountability. The truth does not know red or blue.
So that was a compilation of a bunch of different ads that we've done over months and almost a year and a half now, actually, from the Rupert Murdoch being the most dangerous immigrant to come to America up until what happened here with the defamation suit. I mean, we've been on this, calling it out for quite some time, since January 6th, really.
Yeah, I mean, we have always viewed Fox as a centerpiece of the MAGA media infrastructure and a centerpiece of the center sort of gravity for this agitprop network that on which the right-wing media depends. Mm-hmm. Imagine a volcano spewing shit from it instead of lava. It rolls downhill into all the other nooks and crannies of the conservative media movement, a fecal volcano, if you will. And it feels, I mean, Fox sets the agenda, it sets the tone, it drives the coverage. And as you see it, as you see Fox under some pressure here, their audience, again, has trapped them.
Yeah.
It's like Rorschach in The Watchmen, where they've put him in prison and he says, I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
Yes.
And that idea of them being trapped with the MAGA audience is what's going to bring them back to Trump 100% of the time. Ask yourself how many times Ron DeSantis has been on Fox in the last 3 weeks. He wasn't on again until this week when he got his head cut off again about Disney.
Yes. And I'm going to talk about DeSantis in a second, because he's had a terrible week. The fallout from this with Fox, though, we saw that Dan Bongino, who is one of the biggest jerk-offs out there. That guy, you want to talk about roid rage with this guy? Look at him. I mean, I don't know. It looks like a candidate for me. He is one of the most angry, obnoxious pricks out there. And it scares me that he ever had a badge and a gun. Good grief. But he got fired today. And rumor is out there.
He says, it was amicable. I didn't stay. No. They wouldn't give me what I needed financially, which their offer was, here's $0 and go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's PR speak for he was fired and they were letting him leave graciously. But there's rumors out there that the next two to go, I thought it was a done deal, but it's rumored now that the next two to go would be Judge Jeanine and Bartiromo. And this is, I'm assuming, fallout. Sacrifice. Yeah, fallout from what happened, because you have this whistleblower former producer, Abby Grossman, I think her name is, right?
Yep.
And tonight, as we were coming on air, I was watching Ari Melber, and he had her lawyer on, and they played some tapes that hadn't been heard yet, some audio tapes. One of them of Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz sounding very measured about how right after the election, saying, you need to make sure you have some proof here. You have to have evidence to support this, or else it's never going to hold up in court. So everybody's very measured behind the scenes, but in public, they're running around talking about a stolen election and not certifying the election and all that other bullshit. So I don't want to hear that it wasn't done with malice, because it sure as hell was.
Oh, it was done with malice.
Yes, of course. And Fox News knew it. But the scuttlebutt is what led to the abrupt settlement, was the fact that Abby Grossman had these tapes, because she had so much damning evidence of them that it was overwhelming. Yes. Yeah. So,
and if I were Abby Grossman, I would get a food taster, and I wouldn't sleep in the same place 2 nights in a row.
I know. It takes balls, so good for her. But yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. So Desantis, who was their favorite son over there at Fox, they were trying to push Desantis on the audience, and the audience said, "F you, we don't want him." They're all about Donald Trump. So Desantis now, you should have seen the headlines. I know you saw them, Rick, but folks, the headlines this week have been brutal. For DeSantis. Brutal. Here's a couple examples of that. His own Florida legislatures are deeply frustrated by him. Rich GOP donors want a Trump alternative. DeSantis has them worried. Is DeSantis blowing his shot at the White House? It goes on and on. The headline on Drudge today, as you can see, Trump has his foot on his throat of DeSantis.
And that story was in the Washington Times. Not exactly some liberal outlet.
That's right. So all the fire is starting to turn on to DeSantis. Why? Well, there's a couple reasons. Because A, the guy is out there more and more with this book tour, which has been a failure, and people are getting to see him interact more.
It's a presidential campaign where they've, the folks, the trigger limit in a presidential campaign is remarkably low in dollars. It's $5,000 of expenditures.
Yep.
It's been out for months now. And just saying it's a book tour or whatever else, doesn't cover it. Sorry.
Right. It's a soft launch for the campaign, right? Instead of saying you're doing an exploratory committee like Tim Scott did, that's very old school. The new thing now, it's book tours to get disguise your donor events and all that shit under a book tour, the auspices of a book tour. Well, the book tour has not gone great, and people are exposed to him more and more. And I heard when I was in Dallas, Rick Wilson, that donors and people on his campaign were trying to keep him away from directly interacting with donors.
That's right.
Because he's so awkward and such an arrogant jerk in person that they were worried.
There's nothing that can replace a natural political talent. Mm-hmm. He does not have it. He does not have the talent. That is a talent to interact with human beings. And as much as they would like to try to respin this thing and have Casey out front and center.
That's his wife.
Yeah, it does not work unless you have the sort. And look, politics is also a game of like courtesies and small graces that they just don't understand. How was it, you asked, that Trump went around the state of Florida this week and got all but one of the congressional endorsements that came out this week went to Trump?
That's important for people to understand. These are DeSantis's people. It's his home state. It's similar to like New York City, how no one in New York was voting for Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump lost New York like 95-5, right? Because they know him best. They've lived with Donald Trump for the last 50 years. They know him. They're like, we're never freaking voting for this guy.
Right.
Well, it tells you something, right? For this fucking guy. It tells you something that the Florida delegation does not want anything to do with supporting Ron DeSantis. And the one person that he did get the endorsement from owed him a favor because he had appointed her Secretary of State at one point.
Right. And there were more quid pro quos in that deal too, but I can't go into it right now. But the other thing is
the public one is that
we learned though that tells us a lot about Trump's campaign for 24. We learned that there was a program that the Trump campaign did where Trump would call the members of Congress, ask for their endorsement politely, invite them to Mar-a-Lago, ask if there was anything he could do for them. And they went through this list in a systematic way this week, and he racked up all these endorsements.
Yeah.
61 endorsements for Trump and 3 for DeSantis. Repeatedly, we have heard people now saying, oh, well, I tried to call DeSantis, but his staff blew me off. Oh, I got a 3rd-tier deputy assistant political director at the Republican Party called me back after 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Y'all, there is a magical power in campaigns of connecting with people. And let me tell you, Barbara Bush was famous for this. They would write thank you notes to people. They would write birthday cards to kids for people whose kids were having grandkids or whatever.
Yep.
They would
Bidens do it.
Cards.
Bidens do that.
The Bidens do it. The Obamas did it. W and Laura did it. They acted like the people that supported them meant something to them. Ron DeSantis acts like they are automatons, like he is.
Yes.
And this is something you can't unfuck in 5 minutes. You can't turn this around in 5 minutes.
And you know what?
Reverse it.
That's right. And you can't just act like a bully and think that that's what people want. That may have attracted people in the beginning that thought, oh, he's a tough guy. He's going to own the libs. He's going to take on, the woke mob. And he looks so petulant now. He looks such like the small man that he is, continuing this absurd fight, besides all the other horrible things he's doing in Florida, right? Since the last time we were on air, now we have a 6-week abortion ban. We have you don't need a permit to carry concealed weapons in Florida, right? You can open carry in Florida now without a permit.
No, you can't open carry. You can conceal carry.
And then now and this fight with Disney that keeps going on. And
the Disney fight is the fight that is really starting to lose him support in the legislature.
Yes.
And it's making him, he went down there this week and gave a press conference where he said, maybe I'll build a prison here on the property.
And he looks like an ass.
Hideous thing. And he didn't come across as a guy who was a leader. And look, you had the CEO of Goldman Sachs, or former CEO emeritus, of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein, tweeted out a great tweet. And I heard from money people all over the spectrum, from Republicans to Democrats. When that tweet came out, they had 2 things to say. One, he's picked a fight with Bob Iger, which is in the list of stupid things you can do, pretty high on the list. And he's picked a fight with Disney, which is also very high on the list. And he's out there talking about building a prison next to a place that brings in enormous revenue to the state of Florida every year. It's absurd.
It's absurd. And I tweeted out that this is not a serious person.
No,
this is not a serious person. And then I think it was MSNBC on Monday night where I said, I would like someone to explain to me how this is conservative free market principles, because it's not. The guy is not, this is not what you do. And so you have Chris Christie out here running around trying to dip his toe in the water to see if he can run again. And Chris Christie is, I know. I mean, I'm like, dude, give it a rest, okay?
Stop, bro.
That's ship.
He said today, he goes, I'm not a paid assassin for Trump. I'm like, what, you're a fucking intern?
Well, he looked like a scared intern. He looked like a hostage standing behind Trump in 2016 after Trump vanquished him. So I don't want to hear shit out of Chris Christie, embarrassing Jersey people that way, acting like a punk. I'll say that. But listen, the DeSantis Disney thing is really what's concerning the establishment folks, the Chamber of Commerce folks, and the big money donors. I ran into Anthony Scaramucci today in the airport in Boston coming back this morning. I sent you the picture. And the Mooch, he runs around in those circles, right? He's a finance guy. And we were chatting a little bit, and he was like, this shit with DeSantis and Disney. He goes, people in the finance world who thought that he had a shot, they're going, we can't work with this guy. This guy doesn't have it. So it's starting to reverberate. And anytime you come to DC to try to shore up endorsements and reassure people, and it turns out to be worse, like they should never have come unless they knew for sure they were to come out with public endorsements and a win. That's like such a rookie mistake for the campaign.
Like they had to come out with they needed to come out of that room with 25 names,
right,
to say the DeSantis caucus, the new never back whatever PAC caucus. They should have had something organized and thought through. But you know what? It was described to me by one person as funereal.
Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is not a word that you ever want associated with a trip where it's supposed to be a positive for you. These are unforced errors by the campaign, and they're getting outmaneuvered by Donald Trump, for God's sakes. And when you get more negative stories than positive ones, that's a problem. And
you can't bully your way into the presidency if you're a guy without talent.
Correct. And you know what? He might think that he can emulate Donald Trump being a bully, but you can't. This bullying stuff is something that we have a problem with. And LP put out I love this ad. It was so good, Rick.
It was, yeah, I liked it.
You guys got to check out this ad we put out called Bullies.
As kids, we learn that bullies can't help it. They pick on anyone they think is smaller, weaker. They pick on people they think won't fight back.
So you're going to give a speech or are you going to ask a question?
And like all bullies,
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
they keep going.
Why don't you go yourself, you tiny brain, and I hope this gets picked up.
Until they get punched in the face.
I still got hope because I know we are still here and we will never quit.
Until they see someone standing up.
This is the voice of the people.
Not breaking.
If the governor thinks he can do a better job, then he should run for state attorney, not president.
Not bending.
That's my question to you, Governor. You're the governor of the state. I'm not the governor of the state.
Not giving in.
Do you think that your tweets and your name calling are turning people off?
Because when bullies get their way, they never stop.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're here to do, is to smack the bully back in the face, proverbially, because somebody's got to do it. Damn it! You guys can't get away with it.
The message of that ad is really important right now because there is a sense that Republicans are steamrolling in a lot of states, and they are. Okay, folks, they really are. They're giving you a preview of what the next Trump administration will look like, which is why it is so important to fight them now in 2023. To get up and support the candidates and the causes, and we hope you'll support the Lincoln Project as well, but to support the candidates and causes that are fighting back, because they do not expect you to stand up. They do not expect you to punch them in the face. They do not expect you to get off the ground. They expect you to be scared and to be shaken and to be fearful. And there's the thing they hate the most is the idea that someone's going to say, no, fuck you. I'm coming back at you 10 times harder.
That's right. That's exactly right. And anytime that they saw that, they get knocked back on their heels because they don't expect it. And that's how most bullies behave. So we're not going to put up with that. And neither should the American people, because that is not, we're better than that. That is not who we are. I
will say this, Tara, one more.
Yeah. And then we're going to take a couple questions.
Yeah. We had another piece this week that really showed why DeSantis is starting to fall apart. It's that we've had a serious crisis in Florida right now. We've had these terrible floods in South Florida. There's no gas. And where's Ron DeSantis been? DC, New York, gallivanting around. Where's he going to be this week? Utah. Sorry, Governor, but your full-time job, the one you just got elected to for a second term, your full-time job is actually still down here. And so we wanted to call him out on that one.
Yeah, and we posted an ad. We don't have time to run it now, but we posted a rapid response about that. No, it's okay. The flooding, and it's true, because it's not just us. Marco Rubio put out a video basically kind of quietly.
But it was classic Marco. He's like,
I know.
It doesn't mention the two words. Yeah. The two words he should have. Ron DeSantis.
That's right. Acting like.
And again, as we know, Marco is not a man with, shall we say, enormous fortitude in the
unfortunately,
department.
Such a disappointment.
So,
but maybe they can talk to each other about lifts in their shoes. Let's take some questions.
How about you, Marco?
Oh, good Lord. All right, let's take a couple of viewer questions. Okay, to Rick and Tara, how can we stop no labels? Oh my goodness, someone's been paying attention to what's going on with us.
We ought to just go ahead and nuke it from orbit to be sure. You don't want to take any chances. No, look, stopping no labels is something that requires daylight. It requires exposure. It requires that we talk about what they really are doing, which is they're trying to reelect Donald Trump. We talk about what their efforts have been so far, which is to go in and register a third party in key swing states where Joe Biden has to win. and they're trying to go in those states and pull across conservative Democrats to vote for the no labels ticket. So Joe Biden will lose those states. Every model they've produced so far is a lie. They're telling their donors outright lies. They are saying things like their independent candidate will win Delaware, and that their independent candidate will win Florida, and their independent candidate will win Oregon, and their independent candidate will win Washington. Let me tell you, folks, these people are astounding liars. Their model that they're putting up in the public-facing side is complete fiction. The real model they're doing, the real objective of what they're doing is to reelect Donald Trump, because Mark and Nancy, who run No Labels, are pissed off because the Clintons fired them. And they've had this long psychodrama jihad against the DNC and the Clintons ever since then. Yeah. That's what's driving this. That's what's making this insanity go forward. And they've got a lot of billionaire donors on the Republican side, like Harlan Crow.
Name sound familiar?
Terrence Thomas. Harlan Crow. They've got a lot of billionaire Republican donors funding this. It's a dark money group. And the only way to fight them is to tell people what they're doing. Yeah. Let your friends know. No Labels may sound good, but what it really is a Trump re-election super PAC. They have accused me and other people of running a secret effort against them. It's not secret. We're saying it right out in broad daylight. I fight in the sun, not the dark here, folks.
That's true. But there was some like made up group that right?
Yeah, they made up some group in their head, and they pretended that I was running it. And now it's just down to the lawyers are going to have to handle it.
Yeah,
sorry,
and that's
try.
But the bottom line is there's a lot of crossover between No Labels and Trump world, and that's all you need to know. They're not on,
including Pat McCrory, who is on a big No Labels guy now, who ran for Senate in North Carolina, who was one of their biggest people they funded last year. This is not okay. I repeat, it is not a bipartisan group, a centrist group, a moderate group. It's none of that. It's a pro-Trump super PAC. Tell your friends, tell your family, and watch who gives them the money. Watch who their donors are. And I'll end the No Labels thing on this. Nancy Jacobson, the head of No Labels, was asked who her donors were, and she says, democracy sometimes has to work in the dark. Really?
Yeah.
Is that how you're going to play it?
No.
Because that ain't how it works.
No.
So,
all right, let's go to the next one. Do you think the Republican Party will ever get rid of the MAGA mentality?
No.
Not in our lifetime. Yeah.
It will
unfortunately.
Die first. It will die first. It's too ingrained. It's too wired in. It's too fundamental to who Republicans are and how they define themselves today. And they like it.
Yeah.
They
sad to say.
It gives them permission to be their worst selves. That's why they'll keep it until they die.
That's right. And I mean, will it burn to the ground in all of that MAGA detritus? I hope so. They can all, whatever with themselves, but
we'll see.
At some point, I think something will have to emerge for center right, center left.
Look, I think, right. We need a center right party. I'm a center right guy, folks. I'm not a progressive. I'm not a liberal. I'm a center right guy.
Yeah.
And that means that I believe in individual liberty. I believe in free markets. I believe in a strong national defense.
Yeah, me too.
Today's Republican Party does not have anything to do with me or any. I can't even speak the language they speak. All I can do is help break away people who are still trapped in it, who don't believe in the crazy. And there's a larger number than there was in 2020 of those people who want out. We want to give them a pathway out.
That's right.
We can't say, but the guy with the Trump parade, the boat
flag
parade guy, and the guy who's got the Donald Trump tattoo on the back of his head, we're not saving that guy.
No, but but we're the people that are in the margins there, right? The Bannon line folks, that 7 to 11%, maybe even bigger now because of Dobbs and other things going on here with what Republicans are doing. Those are the people in those key swing states. They need a permission structure to off ramp from Republicans because it's a sinking ship, folks. All right, let's take one more. What's in store for the pillow guy and that Looney Tune Powell? Well, Rick, I don't know if you heard this today, but so Mike Lindell set out a challenge last year at one of that bogus cybersecurity conference that he had, where he said, if anybody out there can prove that my data is wrong, I'll give them $5 million. And he did this in some like legally binding way. And guess what? A cybersecurity guy who voted for Trump, by the way, he was a Trump supporter, said, okay, I mean, I'd like that $5 million. Let me see what I could do. And he figured it out and said, you know what? This is bullshit. It's bogus. Give me my $5 million. And now Mike Lindell is going, humming a what? Well, I don't believe that's not true. It is true. I do have facts. He didn't do it. And now they're in court. So he may be $5 million lighter at some point.
You know, I often think of the MAGA party as Darwin's waiting room, legally speaking as well. And look, Powell, I think, will inevitably be disbarred.
She should be. I don't know how she hasn't.
I think it's inevitable she'll be disbarred.
I don't know how she hasn't already. Yeah. And speaking of that, Jenna Ellis, one of the other idiots that put their law careers on the line.
She bet on Ron DeSantis, Jenna Ellis did.
Yeah, well, she's also persona non grata now with Trump world, and she's whining and complaining about the harassment she's getting and this and that, and they disowned her as the coffee girl, basically.
Singletier.gif.
Yeah. So they can all kick rocks. All right. Well, I think, do we have one more? We can do one more real quick one.
All right, we got one more.
Will anything happen to Clarence Thomas?
No.
Okay, I'll take this one. So
you take it, but I say no. You take it. No.
Yeah, no. The short answer is no. And the reason for that is because the Supreme Court polices itself. So unless Congress passes a law that tightens the ethics rules for the Supreme Court specifically, nothing will happen. Or unless the Chief Justice, John Roberts, institutes some type of stricter ethics rules with enforcement, nothing will happen. I think this is unfortunate. It is just further eroding trust in the institution, and what's going on with Clarence Thomas and Harlan Crow and the amount of gifts and non-reporting. The latest, the first 2 weeks ago, we found out about the trips. Now we find out about this house. His mother's house was purchased by Harlan Crow, and he didn't report it on his financial disclosure. And the mother still lives there, and all she does is pay the taxes. So this is a problem. But because of the way the system is set up, unfortunately, nothing will happen. But what it does do, though, is show you how incestuous this entire thing is and how elections matter. Who wins the presidency matters because they're the ones who determine who goes on the Supreme Court. It is an appointment for life. And that's something that Republicans understood more so than Democrats. And look who has a 6-3 majority now as a result of it. So
there was a 50-year plan to take the court, and they executed on it.
And they did. And so that's that. All right. Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up the show. And as we leave you, we have a very funny clip of Trump and Tucker Carlson during Trump's interview with Tucker, that we just want to remind you that this is the guy who is currently winning by 30 percentage points over Ron DeSantis and will be the next Republican presidential candidate. Take a look.
Last week, you were in New York for this arraignment. The world watched it.
They were crying. They were actually crying. They said, I'm sorry. Tears are pouring down their eyes. They left the dogs, by the way. You know, the people say about the dogs. They left the dogs. Everyone, you know, the dog lovers, and you got a lot of them. I love dogs. You love dogs. He goes, why, oh, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you'll have to figure that one out, Abdul. Granite is unmeltable by blowtorches.
Yes.
It's not global warming. It's nuclear warming. You understand? A beautiful female interpreter. I have a red button on my desk too. Mine's bigger and mine works. Yours doesn't.
Shout out to Jeff on our creative team for creating that gem. Gee whiz, people. This guy, we're here again with this freaking guy. Hi, let's make sure he doesn't win again. All right, folks, make sure also you check out Rick's podcast, The Enemies List. It's like you got like a million downloads now. This is amazing on a regular basis.
Almost 2 million, just under 2 million.
That is so cool. So check out Rick's podcast, The Enemies List, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. And vote for the Webbies.
Bye.
Vote for the Webbies.